Talking about gaming in 2024. What are we looking forward to, anticipating? Biggest games, announcements, or hardware, all those things. We already did a stream looking back at 2023. If you haven't seen that yet, you can check that one out. And just this week, I have done my own streams talking about what I won from Xbox in 2024, what I won from PlayStation in 2024. We're actually coming from that stream right now. So do me a favor, if you're coming over from there, smash the like button. If you're watching this past broadcast, do the same. I'm going to redirect folks over. Mike, good to see you, dude. Hope you had a good holiday.
Well, man, good to see you. Yeah.
We missed a week. But
we did.
We are back. It was a good reason to miss, right? Christmas, you know?
Well, it's just I didn't want to work, so.
Did you get any standout gifts for Christmas this year?
I got my gifts a little early, like the last stream we did. I got 2 standing desks for my setup, so I got that. That was my big thing, and then accessories for the standing desk. So like my computer, I got this rig where my PC, instead of putting it on the desk, it hangs underneath. Mm-hmm. So it's on this like swivel hinge thing that I have to install on the desk. So more just for my setup. That was my big Christmas gift.
Nice. I got the big Spider-Man mosaic Lego set. You know, the one you build it and can hang it on the wall.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, my son, he was like Papa would want this. And then I went to the Lego store with him like a day later, and I was gushing over it. I was like, I want that so bad. And he played it so cool. He was like, yeah, it's just too expensive. Go ahead.
So my son, we take him to Five Below, right? And so I'll go in with him first, and I'm like, hey, grab something that you think mom would like. So you can get like 2-3 gifts for her or whatnot. And then he does the same thing for me. So he got me, I don't know if you can see it in the background over here, the VR headset like stand.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what he actually picked. No one told him to pick these things, right? He's like, you need a stand. And then he got me the Five Below collector's edition of the Ninja Turtles, all 4 of them. And he's like, oh, Dad would like these. So he got me those as well.
Nice. People are asking about the ceiling fan. It's a little distracting. There's a shadow above your head.
I mean, it is what it is, chat. I mean, what would you like me to do? If I shut the fan off, I'll die of heat exhaustion, and then you won't see me on stream. And
yep.
So
he's in Florida, folks. Have some respect, all right? He's he's in the basement of America, okay?
That's not a shadow of a fan. That's my guardian angel up there. So.
I don't want to know what your guardian angel's doing, because the shadow is a little interesting. So, guys, if you came up from the redirect, man, make sure and smash that like button. Let's set our sights on 100 likes. And I want to ask Mike, the first thing I want to ask you is, we already talked 2023. I want one game from you right now. What's the game that you're most anticipating in 2024? Let's start with that.
I am interested. Well, there's 2 games, but I don't know if one game's coming out exactly, right? I'm really excited. I know you said 1, so I'll give you the 1.
Okay.
Star Wars Outlaws. That's the one that I'm really looking forward to next year.
Okay.
So we don't know what the exact date is yet, but I'm excited for that. And the other one that I'm more excited about Outlaws, we just don't know if it's coming out next year, is Transformers Reactivate. So
Okay. I want to talk Star Wars Outlaws with you because you know, I made a video this week saying, like, I think it's going to be good. And did you hear about how they're getting the game to look the way that it looks? Did you watch my video or hear my discovery about that? You're going to love this, okay, because you got a background in TV and film. I kept remarking about when they get to the cantina and they show the Imperial droid, I'm like, it looks like a TV show. Like, it feels like Andor. Do you remember me saying all this?
No, I remember me saying this when we first saw it, and then we had a stream, and I said I love the way she looks, because it looks like they took her from the 80s era when Star Wars was created and made it look like it fits into that era in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So they artistically brought it to what Star Wars looked like when it was filmed in the 80s for this game, and that's why I said this looks really good. And that was the first thing I remarked when I actually watched the first trailer that they showed early this year.
Okay, I'm pumped that I get to tell you this then, because as a guy that has a history in film, they found a way to emulate the lenses from the 70s. So there is a vignetting, they called it vignetting and lens breathing and some other things, and lens flare. That's why the lighting and stuff they wanted it to look like a Star Wars movie from that era. I was like, this is awesome that they put this level of artistry into this game.
Just even the way that Kel Vest, right? That's her name, the main character's name.
K Vest.
K Vest. I was getting Cal from Cal Kessis. K Vest. Even her hairstyle.
Yep.
Looks like it's from the 80s. It looks like
Joan Jett. She's got this Joan Jett vibe.
Yeah.
Love
she's
it.
Totally, and that's what we watched. They didn't say this in the video, in the director's video that he had earlier this year, but he was just talking, and the way the director was talking about the game, I was like, man, this dude is passionate, not only about Star Wars, but he's passionate about making this thing look like it fits between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And so that's what I was really stoked about.
Well, and one of the things I cited in my video was that we've got like 5 confirmed planets, and one of them is Tatooine. And it seems like that's probably going to be about it. And I know some people are like, that doesn't seem like very many. But I said this is a positive because they're going for open world.
Yes.
And after playing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, same team, I'm like, these guys bring a lot of love and a lot of care. Because Avatar, Digital Foundry says it's one of the best looking games this year. And I'm blown away every time I play it. And that these guys bringing that level of artistry and care to Star Wars and the planets, I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be handcrafted. They're not going to have to lean on procedural generation. I mean, they probably lean on it maybe a little bit, but like with only 5 planets, I'm pumped about that. Are there any aspects of the game attempting to do a lot? Because you got like sneaky combat, almost like Western style shootout combat. You got riding around a speeder. You got space combat. Do you have any concerns about this game? Like, it's too broad. That's a lot of different things that might not be, excellent.
I'm a person, and I'm a weird one. I don't put any expectations above what I saw. So what I saw is what I'm taking. I'm taking it at face value. When I look at it, I go, you know what? It kind of reminds me of a Red Dead Redemption, like 1 or 2 type of thing, only because it's a wide open and you can go anywhere in that map, and then you can go to different planets. Now, I'm not saying it's a 1-to-1. Like, it just reminds me of like a Red Dead Redemption 2 type of, like, get on horseback, get on your speeder bike, go explore the worlds and stuff like that. End up going into a cantina and getting a quest line or something like that. It feels like it's I like Massive. I like the studio Massive. I say Massive is one of the better studios out there compared, I'll put them below Insomniac and stuff like that, but they're up there. They're like up there as a company with what they do with their engine and what they do with their games. Even though I'm not a fan of the Avatar Pandora, I still think the game looks beautiful, and I think they did a fantastic job with that. So I'm looking forward to what they're doing with this IP with Star Wars and what they can do with it. So I'm excited but I'm not putting expectations out there going, dude, this is going to be amazing. You could do anything you want in this game, right? And like that's not what I'm going into. I'm like, they're telling a story of Star Wars in between that era that I love. And that's few and far between nowadays with the film and television aspect. They kind of ruin it for that era. So I'm looking forward to seeing, because right now the best entertainment for Star Wars is in video games. And so I'm looking forward to this being another one that they can add to the repertoire. Yeah,
because we I would agree with that, and then slip Andor in. Like I said, gotta give Andor its credit, but we're not going to get the next season until like 2025. Yep. I love that you said the Western aspect and the Red Dead aspect, because it really does capture that vibe of the original Star Wars movies. I'm sorry, they were meant to feel like Westerns. Spaghetti Westerns. And I look at this game and just the way she enters the cantina, the way she sits, the way they frame the scene where she's sitting across from the Imperial officer. I love it. And it gets immediately tense. It has this cinema quality, and yet the gameplay looks awesome. And I love when you can have that sort of synthesis between excellent cinematic storytelling and cool characters as well as good gameplay, because I'm currently playing through The Last of Us Part 1 Remake, and when you get both, I think that's really special. And I honestly think Massive, I agree with Creature in the chat there, they're underrated and I think some of it's because their attachment to Ubisoft, and everyone's like anti-Ubisoft, even though Ubisoft has this amazing catalog of games and quality with games like AC Origins and the entire Assassin's Creed franchise, for Pete's sakes. And I think that people overlook the fact that Massive's engine, the Snowdrop engine, you brought up Insomniac. I feel like a lot of these studios, when they sort of take the engine, whether it's their own proprietary engine or something like the Decima engine with Death Stranding and Horizon, I think engines are going to be the key going forward. And that's why I think a lot of people are pivoting to Unreal. But I think engines bring the ability for a studio to really pour in and have good art direction, really good style. We've been talking about this recently, where like photorealism isn't the be-all, end-all. You've got to have art style is going to be what determines, I think, what makes it and what stands out. Because there's a lot of these photorealistic games coming out. They all look kind of generic. When I look at Star Wars Outlaws, that thing they did with emulating the lenses, I'm like, I see it. Like, you guys have successfully created a Star Wars, air around the game. It just kind of looks and feels like Star Wars. Last thing I want to say before we move on to some other games. The idea that it's just like a female Han Solo. Okay, I saw a couple of interviews about this, and they definitely say that's not the case. And she, as a character, is just sort of stepping into being sort of a smuggler and sort of somebody on the underbelly of society. Mm-hmm. And they say, like, as you level up and as you progress, you're really going to become like a full-blown scoundrel. Did you have any hesitation or thoughts on that? Like, oh, it's just going to be a female Han Solo.
No, I don't look at it that way at all. And I'm not one of those people that looks at it and goes, because they put a female there, all of a sudden it's a woke, product, right? I look at that and go, okay, well, if she's in the Star Wars universe, and in that Star Wars universe, I mean, when you go to Tatooine, everyone in the bar looks basically the same, right? Obviously, when you're making a film or something like that, you have to make your main character stick out. So you make them a little bit different or cooler than the rest of the background. But everyone in Tatooine is like a junker or a smuggler, or, you know what I mean? Like, they're all dressing the same. Like, that's like looking at us, like, just in our real life, and you go out in the streets and two people are dressed similar because they shop at Gap or they shop at somewhere, and they're like, oh, that's just that person. It's like, well, no, it's that own person just dressing the style of the area that they're in, right? And that's just what the culture is. That's just what the thematic of that area is. So I don't look at that at all. I just look at that and go, wow, she looks like she's out of Star. Like I said in the beginning, she looks like she's out of Star Wars from the 80s, right? So I'm excited to see what the character is. I'm excited that I'm sure they're going to bring in some sort of Jedi. I don't think they're going to bring a Jedi character in, but obviously it's in that world, so they have to reference. Obviously, if it takes place during that time, Darth Vader's still around, so I'm sure there'll be mentions of something in some way, shape, or form, but I don't believe it. I hope not. I hope she doesn't become, like, Jedi powered in any way, shape, or form, like she's got midichlorians or all of a sudden at the end of the thing. I hope they don't do any of that.
If we never hear the word midichlorian again, I'll be happy. Shelly saying she gave me more Nathan Drake vibes, where she's technically a good person, but she's going to be doing a lot of murder. Right, and she's obviously okay. If you become a full-fledged scoundrel, well, then that means she's going to be okay with doing bad stuff, breaking the law. It's fun to do bad things, right? That'll be a bit of the vibe. But if it's sort of pitted against the Empire, you will still have that sense of, like, you're on, like, the good side of the fight. This is one of my most anticipated games as well. And the more I look at it, the more I think about it. And when I read that thing about the emulation of the lenses, I thought, man, they're putting a lot of passion into this. The only game that edges out Star Wars Outlaws a little bit for me, and this is a very personal thing, is Hellblade 2. Have you played the first one?
I have not. I haven't even. I've watched very few clips of the game. I actually watched you when you played it a little bit. But other than that, I have no interest in that. I mean, it looks beautiful. It looks great. Just not a game for me.
Man, that's a shame, because I feel like it's one of the best games from an artistic standpoint, especially as somebody with a background in film. The way the game is paced, directed, and the way they utilize cinematics and sound. Gosh, I feel like you should give that game a chance. Put some headphones on and just for me, play the first 20 minutes, the opener where she's in the canoe with headphones on. And if that doesn't convince you to at least, like, well, maybe I should give this thing a try, then yeah, it's definitely not for you.
The problem with games like that, there's always games that come along, like Witcher 3.
Having some lag here.
When it first came out, I wanted to play that game so bad, right? I wanted to play Witcher 3 like so bad when it came out, but when my son was born and when the game came out, I couldn't do it. So it was one of those games that I never played fully. And then I got it years later, and then I still couldn't get into it because other games came out. And I think Hellblade just happens to be one of those games where I might, again, it all depends on where it falls, right? When does that come out? Do they actually have a release date for?
No, actually, all of the Xbox games slated for next year, we don't have dates for, which I'm kind of anticipating them doing another January developer direct, and they're going to just be like, boom, 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 here's all the release dates, because we've got like Hellblade 2, Avowed, Towerborn, 33 Immortals, and the fifth one is escaping me. Chad will have to help me with that. I just covered that yesterday. So many games. I covered, 10 or 15 more games today. But none of those games have release dates. And make sure on your end, Mike, maybe if you've got anything running, you were having some lag there. I don't know if you've got anything open or running in the background. We normally don't have any lag with these calls.
Well, you know what it might be? My son's home from school because he's off. So he might be playing some games or something.
He just downloaded an update, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me go check on it real fast.
Okay. Well, while Mike's stepping away, with Hellblade 2, some of the dialogue around the game, chat, you guys have been here. You've known. I did a whole video about this. The debate about the graphics and the debate about whether or not it looks good. I still fully believe if this was a multi-platform title, that the scrutiny wouldn't be as strong. And as Mike comes back, I was just kind of telling the audience that I feel like the scrutiny about Hellblade 2's graphics has been sort of overstated. I feel like some of this is stemming from the fact that it's not a multi-platform title. What's your opinion on that? Sort of the dialogue around the recent gameplay. And what did you think about the gameplay? They had that trailer at the Game Awards, and a lot of people were saying it didn't look good, or it looked like they were trying to hide bad graphics.
Again, I'm not one of these people that looks at the graphics and is like, you see that? That looks awful. But like, it looks phenomenal. Like, the graphics from the first game look phenomenal. And the problem with photorealism, and I've said this in the past, is like, let me do an analogy like Marvel's in the Marvel's movies cinematic universe, right? They fight Thanos, and that's like the pinnacle, right? So like, where do they go from here? You go back to street level, it's going to look. You're not going to care, right? If they go back to Daredevil, you're not going to care because they went Supernova, where you're fighting these massive battles in space against like gods, and now you're going to fight like Kingpin on the streets, right? So for the most of the people, that's not very cool. So when you look at a game like like Star Wars Battlefront 2 or even Hellblade, the photorealism is so good, but where do they go from there? Like, it's incremental from like the first game to the second game. Like, what were people expecting graphically for Hellblade 1 to 2, right? It looked phenomenal in 1. So if they just match it to what it is, isn't that okay? Or do they have to go above and beyond to make the graphics even more ridiculous?
Well, there's some feedback in the chat here that I think is fair. Like Eugene saying, first-party games are always the most scrutinized, and rightfully so. And then Brian M. is saying, it's scrutinized because everything they show under Microsoft umbrella is fake. I don't think they showed us fake gameplay for Starfield. Now, that marketing was largely spearheaded by Bethesda, but I will grant you that point that Forza Motorsport's a good example of this. Like, they showed us gameplay a couple of years ago, and that game came out and just not even close to the level of fidelity that they promised, and the user scores are reflecting that. It has bad scores on both Xbox and Steam. And, I've even seen people sort of dismissing the Steam scores and saying that, Steam is biased against Xbox. Well, Hi-Fi Rush crushed, and even the Xbox platform game Forza Motorsport bad scores. So, I could understand people being, like, overly scrutinous with Hellblade's footage because of it, and it's not just an Xbox thing. We've been here before. We've seen gameplay. We're like, there's no way that we're going to get that, And we're seeing even with Stalker 2 footage, the lighting has already been significantly downgraded from the first trailer.
Same with Avowed and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I just think that that's a lesson in marketing. Like, stop showing your games so dadgum early. And then when it finally comes out, everyone's going back and saying, we're all receipt keeping in this day and age. You can pull up YouTube and watch the original trailers, and you're like, dude, your game looks nothing like what you originally promised. And so I'm in Hellblade's corner. I'm in Ninja Theory's corner. I love them. I love Melina Juergens. I think she's super talented. She's been heavily awarded for her work, and I love the fact that she wasn't even a voice actor or performer. She was a stand-in. She was one of their video editors.
Yeah.
And that's just probably been such a special and fun journey for her and for the studio. And so I'm in this game's corner. It's my most anticipated game for next year. We're seeing rumors that it's coming in May. These rumors are stemming from someone who, also said Redfall was great after playing it and then said it wasn't after it came out. So I don't know how valuable or concrete these release date rumors are. I'm saying, please be fourth quarter. I want this game to have as much time as possible before it comes out. Right. So that's each of us kind of throwing out our top games for next year. What other games are on your radar for 2024? Because I kind of outlined the ones from PlayStation today. Give you a second here to breathe. We've got The Last of Us 2 Remaster in January. You got Helldivers in February. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Rise of the Ronin. And they just confirmed Stellar Blades coming next year. And then that game Foam Stars, the Splatoon-like game. That PlayStation's already got a pretty strong lineup. So, and as well as I already listed the Xbox titles as well, that we've got Hellblade 2, Avowed, and Towerborn, and 33 Immortals. Those are all confirmed for next year. Waiting on dates though. Am I missing anything, or do some of those stand out to you?
You said a couple I didn't even think of, which means that there's a lot of games. I'm looking at things that I'm interested in, right? So like games that obviously I don't own a PlayStation 5, so I'm not looking towards any kind of PlayStation remasters or anything like that. But I am looking forward to, which is which you did bring up, was Helldivers 2, because that's on Steam and it's also on PlayStation. So I'm interested in Helldivers 2, so that looks interesting to me. Nightingale comes out supposedly at the end of February. That looked interesting to me. I like that type of open world. Is it an MMO? I don't know if it's just an MMO or more of a co-op world that you're in that you can bring in that we can play together. I don't know if is it an MMO, Nightingale?
Nightingale is not an MMO as far as I understand it.
It's just co-op, and you can go into the worlds and fight monsters and stuff like that.
Well, and the concept of this game, I'm very intrigued by Nightingale, because if they can execute on the idea that a world is generated by these cards, then it could sort of feel like the planets in No Man's Sky, where you have no idea what's going to look like until you get there. Like the animals, the fauna and the flora, completely random, generated and giving you the ability to go into a world like that and then build. Its survival elements, I think, look pretty good. And if you can consistently try to almost generate a world that's unique or, specific to your desired experience, I think Nightingale's got a lot of potential. I see some promise in this title, and the art style is very cool as well.
See, I'm interested because someone says it's Milton said it's a co-op survival. Is it a co-op survival like Ark, or is it because the way they're talking about the cards and making the worlds, if it's procedurally generated and you come into my world, like if I go to your world, is it completely different? Like, you know what I'm saying? And then if you build in my world, like how does that work? You know what I mean? I'm interested. On the back end of it. It's intriguing, and that's why I'm interested in it. Am I still having lag?
Yeah, I was going to actually try to do something really quickly here. I was going to set our region to the east. It's not letting me change our region. Oh, there we go. That's west. All right, and then I'm going to switch back to east. Yep. Let's see if we can't jog this thing out of being so laggy. It was set to automatic on region, so maybe we can get on a better server here. Yeah, the game idea and principles, I have a lot of questions as well. I think you're asking the right questions. Like, is it going to be, my world randomly? If you use the same cards that I use, are our worlds going to be identical or slightly different? I think those are good questions, and I do think it seems to be getting good response. So Discord's been struggling hard. Yeah, it could just be Discord. It really, really could. It might not be something we can fix. If it lags again, I'll pop us back out, and I'll try central servers and see if we don't get a better connection there.
Another one I'm interested in that we don't know if it's coming out this year is Crimson Desert. Right now, that looked amazing, like graphically and just looked like a fun game. And when they first announced it, I was like, oh, is this going to be like one of those other games that they have? I was like, and they're like, no, it's a single player game. I was like, oh, okay, I'm interested. So Crimson Desert looks very interesting to me as well.
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Open world action adventure. The graphical fidelity looks like we might be looking at like rendered footage. It might not be raw. It's always hard to tell. It's another one that I feel like when it finally comes out, especially on console, it's probably not going to look that good. I think everything we saw is totally capable on a strong PC. But I also think that we could be looking at something that is maybe going to need to do some potential downgrades on console with the lighting and stuff, because it looked a little wild. But it looked really cool. I really thought it looked very promising.
I like what they say. It looked a bit too amazing. Yeah, it looks too good to be true. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're all
ambitious. It's ambitious.
Not just ambitious. I feel like we're all developing a hive mind of gamer instinct, where you're like, that's too good to be true. Yeah. We all knew that the day before was fake. And people insisted that it wasn't, but we knew from the very beginning. You looked at that footage with a scrutinous eye, and you were like, dude, this isn't real. That's no way. I went back and looked at some of the early footage, and it's like all the signs were there. The level of detail, reflections, and the frames per second, you could tell. You're like, this is not gameplay. This is fully rendered. This is fake. It's not real. And I think we're developing sort of as a hive mind. We're like, yeah, no, I don't think that's going to be how it looks. Even with Stalker 2, we went back and looked at some of the earlier gameplay footage, and the reflections on the brick wall and the water and the muzzle flare on the gun. I'm like, no, it's not going to look like that. Maybe on a PC, a 4060, path tracing, ray tracing, all turned up to 10, but no, not on an Xbox Series X. Not on a console. Certainly not on the Series S, because it can't even do ray tracing. So it's like, I think we're getting better at sniffing these kind of fake showcases, these fake gameplay trailers out. In the realm of Xbox, we had this discussion yesterday about Avowed, and it got down into the muck and the mire of like, I've been insisting upon that initial trailer set expectations, and it's gone through an artistic downgrade or a graphical downgrade.
Sure.
And they also made the decision to not do co-op. I actually think their decision to remove co-op made sense when they talked about it. They were getting into quest design, and they were like, this is not our wheelhouse. We make single-player games.
Is that co-op, couch co-op, or co-op online co-op, or both?
Co-op in general has been removed from the game, yeah. And I don't think it was going to be split screen. I think it was going to be online. I think a game like that, split screen co-op would be really tough. Like, Returnal doesn't do split screen co-op. There would just be no way. It's too, even with the art style and the graphical fidelity of Avowed, I think split-screen co-op would be an unreasonable expectation. I think it's just too hard on the systems.
I didn't even know they were trying to do co-op originally until you just said that you're getting rid of co-op, and I was like, oh, I didn't know there was supposed to be co-op in that game.
Well, good. So that's not an expectation that you had, so there's no disappointment for you there. On the subject of like what it looked like in the trailer and what it looks like now, that's a big debate, and we also have no release dates. What do you make of the lack of release dates from Xbox, and what do you make of kind of the discussion about Avowed? I think we've talked about this before, so I'm thinking we get a bunch of release dates in the January Xbox Developer Direct. I think they're going to do that again. Maybe even shadow drop something, because they've got titles like 33 Immortals and Towerborn that would be perfect for a shadow drop. What do you think about the lack of release dates, as well as just kind of the Avowed art discussion?
As far as the art discussion, take Avowed out of it. Just any game. When they first show a game if it's at the Summer Game Fest, if it's at the Video Game Awards show, if it's just dropped at some time for the first time and you see it, I never take that original look as, oh, that's what it's going to be. I'm like, oh, it looks good. It looks interesting. Like it intrigued me enough to go, okay, I'll keep an eye on it. But I'm not looking at that going, oh boy, I can't wait for that game to come out. I'm so excited for it. Look how it looks. I'm not that person, right? I look at it and keep my expectations low. I'm like, all right, cool. It's interesting. I'll see what happens when it comes out. So graphic-wise with the downgrade, I mean, come on, we've all been here with Division and Watch Dogs and every other game that's come out where it looks superior, and then it comes out, you're like, that doesn't look exactly like what it would look like when you first showed it. So if you're a person, maybe you're younger and maybe this is your first game that you're getting excited for, but if you're older and you've been around for a couple of years, you shouldn't make your expectations where that's what it's going to be. So visually, I don't really care for it. Now, as far as the release date, I've been beating this drum for half a decade. I said, don't tell me a date until you have a solid date, right? Because I don't like when games come out and they announce it and they tell you a date. Even Starfield did this, 11/11, and then it delayed, right? Hogwarts Legacy got delayed like twice, 3 times. Suicide Squad had a date, they got delayed. There just so many games. Halo got a date and then it got delayed. There's so many games that get these dates and then they get delayed. It's like, just shut up. Just shut up. Work on the game, make the game, and then when it comes out and releases, because then you get games like Hi-Fi Rush that came out, that shadow drop, like as you said. So maybe Avowed comes out in 2024, but we just don't know when. And then all of a sudden they're like, boom, here it is, Avowed.
Well, and I think people would push back on what you said about, equating it to Watch Dogs. I agree with you. I'm on your side of the issue, but people would push back and say, well, it was a cinematic trailer, and that should not set expectations for what the game looks like. How would you respond to that pushback?
I mean, if you're being tricked, or if you're hyping up the game when you're looking at it going, oh, that looks beautiful, and then all of a sudden they show you the next gameplay footage and it looks downgraded, I mean, that means you're new to the industry, or you haven't paid attention up until now. I mean, you look at games and then when they release, they're not going to be what they show you. That's a hype trailer. That's a trailer. That's to get you into the seats if it was a movie theater. That's to get you onto the subscription service if it was a streaming, a movie or television show, right? They put the best things in the trailer to get you excited, and you're like, oh, so of course they're going to put it in high fidelity and in-game, and when they put that translucent thing at the bottom and it says not gameplay footage or captured in-game or something like that. You can't just look at that and go, that doesn't exist, and then go, oh man, it looks amazing, even though they told you on the screen that it's in-game engine or in-game footage or gameplay, right? It tells you on the actual screen. So again, a lot of people's expectations in this industry are they make these expectations and they can't hit their own expectations, which it's like reading a book. You read a book and then you watch the movie, you have this expectation like, oh man, it's going to be just as good as the book. Well, obviously it can't be, because they have a budget. In a book, they don't have a budget. It's just words on paper and your imagination. So,
yeah, my pushback was a little different. I basically said that anytime you show something like that and then you transition to the player's perspective, you don't get to say, oh, it was just a cinematic trailer. I don't agree with that. If it's purely cinematic, like, I think a good example would be the Fable trailer. The Fable trailer is a mixture of cinematics and what looks like is intended to be gameplay. And it's like, you're setting an expectation that that's what that game is going to look like.
But didn't it say on the page when they showed it, it said in-game, captured in-game engine or something like that, didn't it? In-engine game footage. I forget the phrase they used. Yeah. And some of the developers came out and said, oh no, that was gameplay. Okay. We will keep those receipts then. And we will say, when the game comes out, does it look like what you show? Now, I agree with you. Now, if a developer comes out after the fact, after watching that and goes, oh no, that's gameplay, and then it doesn't hit that mark, well, then they shove their foot in their mouth, right? But if it's just the trailer that you're watching and on the screen it says in-gameplay footage and captured in-game engine, whatever, that's on you, the player, the viewer.
Well, and again, I think there's a big difference between setting up a cinematic trailer. Like, a good example of a cinematic trailer would be, something like that, or Concord. Concord's cinematic trailer was like, we have no idea what the game's going to look like. But if Concord would have transitioned into the perspective of the player and like a gun came up, I'd be like, okay, I expect the game to look like that, to look in that vein, that art style, that level of graphical fidelity. And I said, this is just as you said. This is a lesson in marketing. Quit showing your games so early. If you want to announce them early, that's fine. Stick to cinematic only. Don't do this or simulated quasi gameplay. Or live action. Right.
Yeah, or go live action. Because that's not the graphics.
Because what I said was, if you looked at the Avowed gameplay trailer and had never seen anything about the game, I think you'd be like, yo, that game looks dope. Like, the one fish-looking guy NPC, he looks cool. The world, the art style, the colors, it all looks nice. But because we had that initial trailer, that comparison almost infects us. And it's like, why? Hey, they downgraded it. And it's like, I just think it's, like I said, it's a continued lesson to not showing things too early. Now, they confirmed, and this is more, I guess this isn't, they didn't confirm this, but Helldivers 2 is coming early in the year, and it has
February 8th.
Yeah,
that's what it says. Yeah.
Yeah, PlayStation's hitting a real good rhythm right off the bat. It's like Last of Us Remastered, Helldivers, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rise of the Ronin. Like, boom, boom, boom. First 3 months are very full for PlayStation. So, there is speculation, obviously, that Helldivers 2 is going to be one of the first PlayStation Live service games. Now, Gran Turismo 7 is kind of already one of them.
And MLB The Show is out there.
Yeah, MLB The Show. And this, to me, is the bigger question, because I think Helldivers looks like fun. It just does. It looks like a fun game, but it could kind of fall into that Aliens Fire team where you're a generic character in a generic world and you're just kind of fighting aliens. So how do they get you to come back? How do they get you to be invested? I'm curious, what's your thoughts on that? Because you and I have a long-standing history with Destiny and games like The Division, and that is my one concern with Helldivers 2 is like, I know I could play that and have fun, but I don't know if I would ever come back to it after the first month, because it's literally just generic gameplay, generic characters. Like, again, that's not a slam. I think it's really hard to enter the co-op shooter kill aliens world and have it feel unique, fresh, and compelling enough for me to come back in a couple of months.
So what gets me right now, I'm playing, I don't know if you've played Starship Troopers on the PC, right?
Oh, I haven't.
Okay, so Starship Troopers is in early access or beta or whatever right now, and they're working it out, and then until it comes out till console later, I think this year is supposedly it's supposed to come out late this year or whatever. But that's exactly what Helldivers is, right? And I'm not saying 1-to-1, but just the type of the game it is. The reason I keep going back to playing Starship Troopers, one, I'm 45 years old and I love the movie because it's so cheesy, and it brings me back. And then you get to be, and it's a 16-player co-op game where you're in the game with 16 other people, and you're building bases and you're on the planet and you're killing them, and it's cool. You feel like you're part of that movie era, right? And they keep bringing in different characters or you have different classes, different game modes. So that's how they keep you coming back. Plus, it's an early access, so hopefully by the time it comes out, it'll be fleshed out. Maybe we get like as well as Baldur's Gate 3 got tested for 2 years. Maybe Starship Troopers will be through the ringer with people playing it and giving it good feedback, and then it becomes a really good game when it launches, right? So Helldivers, if I'm not mistaken, is like a $40 game, is it not? It's not a full price game. It might be $50. I don't think it's a $70 game. So if that's correct, then right off the bat, my expectations is it's not going to be a game that you're going to be there for months and months and months and months and months. It's going to be one of those games that you put in, like you said, maybe 30, 40 hours, 50 hours. Maybe the people that really like it are going to play it for hundreds of hours. But most of the people put in like 20, 30 hours, and then they'll wait for a season event, or maybe they'll come back and say, oh, we added another character, or we added another class, added more weapons. That's how they keep you coming back in those types of games.
Yeah, it is. It's $39.99. So I do think that's probably an important perspective to bring to any time the discussion happens around that game, is like, look, this is not even a $70 game. It's a $40 game. Like, there are DLCs that cost $40. So I think that's good perspective on that. And in the vein of knock-around games to play with your buds, I put up a video this week, yesterday, saying that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will be a good game. Like, I actually think it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. Now, I'm hearing from people that seemingly have no problem breaking NDA. They're like, well, I've played the alpha and I don't agree. And we covered this a while ago and kind of discussed it and kind of broke it down. What's your thoughts on this game? There's sort of that continued skepticism and anger or criticism about its live service and its gun-based combat. Looks like Fortnite. Where
was that? You broke up. What game did you say?
Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Oh, okay.
So where are you on that game in particular? As interest level, is it going to be good? Like, I actually think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to surprise people.
I can talk about what they showed because I played the alpha, so I won't go into depth there. But I was sold on the game beforehand only because of Rocksteady. Right, I loved Rocksteady's game that they made with Arkham. I love the second game they made. I like the whole series. I know they didn't make the third game, but I still like the storytelling of Rocksteady. So when they first announced Suicide Squad, and it was supposed to come out years ago, and then it got delayed, and then it was supposed to come out last year, and then it got delayed. Obviously, I played Marvel's Avengers a lot, and I liked what that was because I liked the IP. I'm not a big Suicide Squad's fan, but I'm a Rocksteady fan. So my expectations, and this will be a big theme as we go into 2024, my expectations for this game is not, I'm not looking for the Destiny live service aspect where I'm going to be playing this for 1,000 hours, right? I'm looking at this game to play through the campaign, play through the story, and have Rocksteady tell me a DC comic book story of the characters in that universe. And that's where my expectations are. Anything past that of the story, if it's the live service and they come back with new characters and they add more story to it, that's icing on the cake for me, right? So I'm going into paying full price for this game when it comes out day one, playing it, enjoying it, because I did enjoy it when I played it. So I'm just looking really forward to until Rocksteady proves to me that they don't screw up like Cyberpunk 2077 or any other company that had goodwill and then flush it down the toilet for a bit and then building that goodwill back up. I mean, the next game that Larian Studios comes out with, they have all the goodwill in the world, right? So Rocksteady hasn't made a bad game, in my opinion, for the games that I've played for theirs. So they have the goodwill in their corner. So I'm going to give Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League a shout.
Okay. Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me was after, we learned it was going to be like a 4-player co-op sort of live service style game. I was kind of surprised when they put this big emphasis on story in that one trailer and, the devs were talking. And we also, you and I have interacted a little bit with a guy. There's a guy on Twitter that he's like their lead web developer, I think. And he seems to be thinking like, man, just let us get this game out, like give it a shot. And that's just my perspective on it. I was really frustrated by the way that Lies of P was reviewed and the way that like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora was reviewed. I don't like this. I'm going to lower a game's score and I'm going to lower its review because of its familiarity to Far Cry games or FromSoft games. Like, that's not an assessment of the game's quality. And I feel like looking at this game and being like, well, I wanted another Arkham game. I get that desire. The Arkham games are dope. But they chose to make something else, and I think we should judge it within the vein that it's being built and what they're targeting.
Right, and I think as gamers, I mean, obviously, people are already giving Suicide Squad's crap because they're like, that's not the game that I wanted, right? That's not the game that I was looking forward to. And it's like, well, you're not making the game. The person that's making the game decided what they wanted to do, and if they told you ahead of time that this is a different industry now, like when they were making Batman Arkham, there wasn't leaks, right, about Batman coming out and what the gameplay was and what the story was, and there wasn't all of that. It was just Rocksteady announced a Batman game. Everyone was like, oh my god, this could be good, right? Then when they played it and started playing the actual game and the fight mechanics, you're like, this is the greatest fight mechanic ever put in a game. So much so that Spider-Man basically took it and made it into their own, into Spider-Man, right? Like, it's so good when you fight in that game. So them coming out and going, well, we want to try something different. We want to put guns, and everyone's like, they ruined DC. And it's like, come on, man. They're artists. This is art, right? You don't go up to a Picasso picture and go, I don't really like the way he did the brush strokes, and he should have used something different. You look at the art and go, oh, it's really good art, right? You either like it or you don't like it, and don't go, I would have done this one better. Like, that's what the artist wanted to do. The artists want to make the game what it is. Now, there could be big suits going, well, how do we get the microtransactions in the game? Of course.
Sure.
But the fundamental part of the game that Rocksteady wants to tell is this. So if you don't like it, then here, this is what you do. Take advice from me. Don't buy it day one. Don't buy it week one. Don't buy it month one. Wait for people to review it, or don't buy it ever. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, video games are supposed to be fun. They made something. The people that want to play it.
Yeah, And I want to respond to something in chat because, Pyramid Scheme says, hear me out. Maybe people can tell what works and what doesn't, and the consensus is this won't work. I think that attitude makes sense, but I also think the gaming world right now is full of games that we thought there's no way. Fortnite's a great example of this. I remember when the Battle Royale dropped, people were like, what? They're like, that game? Now it's one of the biggest games in the world. So... the concepts and the games that have been successful and the evolution of games, I think the intersection of live service and open world action adventure games, I think that intersection is one that we have not seen properly cook and evolve enough yet. I think AC Valhalla was a glimpse into how something like that could work. An ongoing game that's an open world action adventure setting. And I think the reason we haven't seen this fully evolve yet is mainly because you see these studios pour 4, 5, sometimes 6 years into these massive open world games, and maybe they do a DLC or two, and then that's the end of it. And it's like, that just seems like, why not continue to build in that world? It's like a microcosm of the MMO. It's like instead of this big massive open world on a server, it's like it's a contained thing. You know, Horizon has a massive open world and it's awesome. Ghost of Tsushima, you know, Assassin's Creed Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. So, and welcome back, Dan. Welcome back, Snow. Thanks for renewing. You know, so I think to write this off and be like, no, we know this isn't going to work. It's like, I don't know, man. It's marketable property. It's characters that look cool, and I obviously think that the difficulty with this game will be the fact that the characters are lesser known. But come on, Harley Quinn. Everybody loves Harley. You know, everybody thinks Harley Quinn's hot, and then you got King Shark. He's really iconic. You see him, you're like, I want to run around the city as a shark. Like that'll be fun. And I also just think we need to leave room for just fun games to play with buds. Like, and my biggest worry is that games that are just kind of fun to play with buds, they just don't have staying power. That's my biggest concern. Is that
do they need staying power?
I think they kind of do, because a lot of the assumption, maybe this is a bad assumption on my part, but I think a lot of the assumption around a game like this is that it's got to be ongoing. Why would you build a big open world with multiplayer and co-op and not have it be ongoing? Maybe that assumption on my part is wrong, but I feel like a lot of studios probably say that. Like, well, why would we not have this be ongoing?
Well, this game, I think, is twofold, right? It's the single-player aspect, co-op aspect of the story, okay? And if you want to play it where you're not immersion broke, where if me and you play together and we both want to be King Shark, we can play together and both be King Shark. But during the cutscenes, you're only going to see one King Shark, right? You're not going to see both King Sharks in the cutscene because they have a story narrative with the 4 characters, right? So you're not going to see your character in those cutscenes. Okay?
I thought they said that we couldn't both play as King Shark.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so you're okay. I understand what you're saying. Okay.
So you could be the same characters, right? But during the cutscenes, it's immersion breaking, right? Because a lot of people are like, I don't like that because my character is wearing this outfit and then not in the cutscenes. Okay, so there's the single player aspect of it, and then there's the live service aspect of this game. And this live service aspect of this game, I think if the single player storytelling narrative is successful, then that's it. That's people are going to buy the game, play the game, put down the game until something else story-driven comes out. Now, the live service aspect, in my opinion, lives or dies with how much content they have in the pipeline already. Okay, and now I'm assuming, again, this is an assumption, so they probably didn't do this, but the game's delayed 10 months. Okay, 10 months from where it was supposed to come out. Hopefully, they decided to work on the content that's coming out the first year, because they did have in the frequently asked questions, at any time, if the game doesn't succeed, they can just stop supporting the game. Okay, so hopefully they have 3 or 4 characters ready to come out, and then they have story-driven content that's coming out throughout the year, where if the major game comes out and it's broke, buggy, kind of glitchy, they're not doing what Marvel's Avengers did and chasing their tail to fix the game while they're trying to get content out. If the game comes out and it's solid, and then the other content's already in the pipeline, then they can already work on the next content for the 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line to keep bringing it in. I think that's where this game lives or dies. But as far as if it's successful or not, I mean, if let's say 5 million, 6 million people buy the game day one or first month and then put it down, never come back, they still made their money back for the game, right? They're still successfully financially for that game. They're just unsuccessful with the live service aspect of it.
Yeah, and I want to respond to this too. Fitness Matt is saying, Skillet put it best. Why is Captain Boomerang using a bazooka, not a boomerang? My biggest fear is that the game is that they will just chase live service trends instead of being faithful to the source. There is contextual reasons within the story as to why they're using guns, and they also use their token stuff as well, and it's interwoven. I actually found the more recent footage of interweaving melee and traversal and shooting all together. Yep. I really think that's just going to surprise people and be like, hey, this is actually fun. Like, this is actually something that I didn't expect. Because, I'll be honest, The reason I'm in this game's corner is it's like, okay, another game where you play as some comic book characters and kind of go around and beat people up, and then you have some boss fights. I worry that it also would have been criticized as white noise about like, well, this just looks like Spider-Man, or this just looks like another Batman. So I think it's fair for them to take a shot at something very different and say, hey, we're going to do a very different take on this. Like, the Justice League's been hijacked by Brainiac. Suicide Squad's got to come in and kill them. They need special weapons in order to do that because of, how strong everything is in the city. I don't know. I don't even have a reason to fanboy for the game. Like, I'm not. I don't know who these characters are other than Harley. I don't really follow them. I didn't grow up reading their comics, and the movie was awful. So I'm kind of in the game's corner. I want to give it a shot. And just like Gotham Knights, okay, I told people this. I was really harsh against Gotham Knights, right? I know
I was open-minded. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were open-minded, and I was really harsh because I saw I looked at Gotham Knights and I said no. I saw all the hallmarks of a bad game. And I know people don't agree with me, and they're like, you need to revisit it. And I'm like, I don't think I do. I didn't see any significant pushes and updates. So this game, I just don't see that. I don't see a bunch of red flags and a bunch of warning signs. And I think it comes down to expectations. Like, this is kind of what I was expecting from the game anyway. So I don't have that like undercurrent of disappointment and anger. Like, this isn't what I wanted. And I think that maybe is why I was so immediately like, what's going on with Gotham Knights here? Like, I thought this was going to be another, Arkham style game, and it just didn't feel like it. So, can't believe how well Gotham Knights sold, though. I think that's one of the reasons that this game's probably going to be okay financially, is I think it'll sell well. And then, like what Mike was saying, like, what's the ongoing content plan? Like, if it's just battle passes and cosmetics, I think the game will burn out. Like, that's not compelling.
Sure.
Like, anybody can do a battle pass. Anybody can give, Harley Quinn a cute outfit and a funny hat for King Shark. That's not compelling content. And I think they're going to need something compelling. I think they're going to be able to use the city and new villains, new heroes, things like that.
I have a fundamental question about the gameplay, though, because you might have another Destiny on your hands here where, okay, we have 4 characters to start off with, and you're playing through the story, and you're leveling up those characters. Now, all of a sudden, let's say they throw Peacemaker in, right, or another character. Am I playing the same story yet again now with Peacemaker? Or am I playing the new content that came out, and I can throw those points into that new character and then have him up to that certain point and then level him up more, right? And then now they throw another character in. Now I have 6 characters. Now I'm playing the same, right? This is Destiny all over again, where you had to level up your Hunter, then you had to level up your Warlock, then you had to level up your Titan. Yeah. And you get burnt out that way as well. So don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that like that type of content, but in Gotham Knights, what I thought they did okay was if you leveled up Batgirl and you didn't play Red Hood, and then you wanted to play Red Hood, those points that you leveled up with Batgirl, he had points there that you could put into the skill trees. That way you didn't have to just level him up all again, playing the exact same content over and over and over again, right?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be a problem. Additive content that doesn't feel like it's going to like wring the player out. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do all that over again. I think that's going to be, one of the difficulties that they may end up having with the game. And I using the world to put in, new threats, new villains, bring in a new character. I honestly think that there's potential there to keep the game ongoing. But again, the question would be is like, do you want to come back? Do you want to keep playing? Do you want to level up the character again? I actually think those are the bigger question marks. And I always tell people with games like this, it's like kind of like what you said. You can just play through the campaign. You can just play through the single. You can play through it single player, right?
Co-op, single player, group of friends, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can walk away from it. You don't have to come back for any of the content. Like if you get a decent chunk of time in the game, then I feel like you you got your value out of it. You got your worth out of it. I do think that's kind of the ticket too with live service games is build a really, really solid launch title. And then if you add on to it after, like sort of recapture what you did with the launch title instead of just being like, oh, we have seasons and battle passes and cosmetics. Like it's got to be content driven. It really needs to be content driven. And I think that's something that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League can capitalize on. I've been saying that live service games need to get away from the player funnel engagement model and move more toward a content driven model. Like if you go to a content driven model, I think what you can do is you can focus more on delivering good content at a cadence to get people to keep playing. But it's not like, oh, we got to have FOMO and a battle pass and people got to keep logging in because if they stop logging in, we're going to lose the player base and then nobody can matchmake and then there's nobody to play with. I think player engagement funnel model is so hard and people keep forgetting that games can launch like this, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League does not need a full player funnel to be successful. It just needs steady content flow. So, for that reason, I'm in the game's corner. Go ahead.
I want to answer the question because all the content after the main game is free, right? So you pay whatever the $70, whatever, or the collector's edition, whatever, $100, whatever you're getting, and you don't pay for any other content. Now, you want cosmetic skins. You're going to be able to earn all the characters that they bring into the game. That's free content. The stories that they're bringing in are content. Now, I have a problem with that because I saw how Marvel's Avengers did it, and they did it poorly. So this is what I said earlier. If they have the content already in the pipeline and they're not chasing their tails, then it could be successful. But if the main story is good, I think at least you get a good single-player campaign out of it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Now, as far as that's just some of the games coming out, games we're looking forward to, things like that. Is there anything that you're hoping we hear about? Now, not necessarily like a game that's launching, because like I told people, like, I would love to hear from Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima 2, like, please, it'll be 4 years since the last game came out. Are there any games you're hoping, or studios or announcements or things you're like hoping, okay, hey, come on, it's time that we hear a little bit more about this or see more from this game?
There's a game that I think a lot of people forgot about. I don't know if it's coming out this year. We saw it, I think, like 2 years ago. It's called Replaced. Do you remember this? It was a side-scroller, cyberpunk-esque type of game.
Yeah, we talked about this one yesterday, and I was like, I forgot about this one because it was supposed to come out this year.
And I don't know what's happening with that, but when I saw it, I was like, bro, that looks great. Like, I'm interested in that. So I would like to know more about that game. Another game that I don't know if it's coming out this year. It was supposed to come out in 2024. Is the Dune Awakening, the like Ark type of game, but with Dune, right? So I don't know if that is making an appearance anytime soon. And then the big one that I'm really looking forward to, and I think Creature's looking forward to as well, is Transformers Reactivate. Like, they showed a trailer last Video Game Awards show in 2022. And then we've gone over 365 days without hearing anything about nothing about that game. And it really irritated me the day before or 2 days before the Video Game Awards show. They're like, yeah, we're not saying anything. We'll see you in 2024. So I'm looking forward. There's supposed to be some sort of beta or something coming out later this year. So I'm really excited about that. And again, that's more of a fanboy IP that I just really love, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Outsider, thanks so much. He says, Transformer Reactivate, we need news, 18 months in the VIP. And Outsider also gifted members, taking us closer to 50. Guys, if you're enjoying the show, man, smash that like button. Let's set our sights on 200 likes. A lot of people here for this stream today, and thank you for being here and trying to interact with chat as well. I would love to not just hear about Ghost of Tsushima 2. What I said in my PlayStation stream was, I really think VR had a good year, but I also feel like the PSVR 2 was really inconsistent because a lot of games wanted to port over because they saw like, hey, VR 2 is kind of getting hyped. It's more powerful than a standalone. And we got a lot of bad ports. And I think PlayStation needs to really drill down and be in more control of what comes to their platform in the VR space. It'd be better to have about half the titles we got this year and have them all be great instead of have that storefront flooded with crap.
Right.
And I think we're experiencing a low-level gold rush on VR. People are like, oh, we want to be one of the first games to come out because VR is kind of having some growth. and then their games come out and they're just not ready. They're not polished. You know, they kind of run poorly. So Call of the Mountain, the Horizon VR game, was spectacular. We're hearing amazing things about the Resident Evil VR experience. And then Synapse was such a great title. And I had a lot of fun with Gazzlers, like a rogue Borderlands cartoon style game that you're on like the back of this truck. So fun. And I enjoyed, you know, the Assassin's Creed VR game on my MetaQuest 3 and Asgard's Wrath 2 I'm still playing. So
how was that game? How's that last one you just said?
Asgard's Wrath 2?
Yeah.
Is probably the best combat as far as like melee combat I've experienced in VR. Any game I've played on VR and you're sword fighting or boxing, the combat in this is just awesome. You feel dope. You do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it in the store and I was like, do I have time to play this? Do I have time?
Well, you have a sword and you have an axe and you can throw both, but the rhythm, and I haven't even gotten the bow yet, okay? But
how do you pick it back up? Do you just reach out with like a force power, or do you have to walk up to it and pick it up?
You reach out and you hold the grab button and you pull back.
And you summon it.
It
right?
just feels awesome. Like the first time...
It's like Captain America with the Thor hammer, bam!
Yes. The first time that Kratos does that in God of War 2018, you're like, oh, like you feel awesome. Yeah. This is more immersive because you're literally doing it with your hands.
Yeah.
And so blocking and throwing and pulling back and block, and then guys will have like weak points that'll show up in slow motion. You can throw and hit it. I just feel awesome. Like I'm like, this is so much fun. Like it hits the right notes of you can get your butt kicked. You really can. If you're not properly parrying and managing crowd control and moving around, you got to dash quite a bit.
So it's an action adventure game. It's not a Souls-like game.
No, it's not Souls-like, and it's open world. Like you literally get at some point in the game you get a mount. Minor spoilers. You get a mount, and you're riding on the back of a jaguar. Like,
do I have to get through Act 3 before I get the mount?
No, you get it fairly early.
Sorry, that was a Diablo shot. I'm sorry.
They also do this really cool thing where you are suddenly not inside your character. You're like this god, and you kind of leave the body of the character, and he's down on the ground, and you're suddenly huge in the environment, and you're moving things to solve puzzles to get him to different areas. So the scope is dope. You're like, that rhymed. You're like on the ground, but then all of a sudden you're huge in the room, like helping solve puzzles. It's really, really creative and really fun. I'm still playing through it. I love it.
And that's a full price game, right? That's like a $60 game.
I got it for free with my MetaQuest 3. But yes, I believe it's a full price game. And it has all the hallmarkings of a full game. Like it's really, really enjoyable. And it has a rogue mode in it as well. And I haven't quite figured out the rogue mode. Like I got through, you do level 1, 2, and then you do what's called a divine challenge. And the divine challenge is tough, and it kept beating me. Well, I finally beat the divine challenge, and then I didn't like leave the rogue mode with my currency and my success. I just went to another level 1, level 2 divine challenge, and I died. And then when I came back out, I didn't have anything, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, where's the meta progression? There's a chest you can open, and you get some currency, but at that you get that once a day.
Oh, as I say, do you use the currency to unlock a different weapon, different ability?
Different strengths. So like a meta progression in a rogue where you come back out and you're like, okay, now I'm going to spend stuff. They did that with Synapse.
But they time gate the rogue mode?
I can't figure it out. I haven't had time to go back in and try again. I was obviously pretty frustrated. I was like, well, I finally beat the divine challenge and I got to the next area. It's like, I don't want to go to the next area. I want to leave and spend all the stuff that I found. And at the end, it shows you everything you've done. And then I go up to the person and I don't have any currency. I'm like, I don't understand what happened. So it might have been a bug, or maybe I'm not understanding. Maybe after you do the divine challenge, maybe there was something I could do to leave. Kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? You can keep going, or you can get out of here with your currency. So maybe I made a mistake. But really, really fun game. Definitely worth checking out.
Okay.
But I do want to see that from PlayStation. More protection of the VR. I don't think they're going to get like Asgard's Wrath or the Assassin's Creed game. It's unfortunate that there's sort of a fight for ground and capital right now in the VR space. Sure. So you almost have to own every single VR device if you want to play all the games. which is unfortunate because Asgard's Wrath would probably look and run incredibly on the PSVR 2 because there are some hitches and some frame like lags every once in a while because it's an all-in-one device, so it's not you're not plugging into a really strong PC or something. And then Insomniac, with the Insomniac leaks. What'd you think about that? What'd you think about the Insomniac leaks and how the press handled it and how people were calling the press hypocrites and all of that? I mean, what was your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not one to go into conspiracy theories here as far as the video game industry, but it did seem a little weird that a lot of the outlets were taking a stance and they're like, we're not going to report on leaks. And meanwhile, they've reported on every leak up until that point of Insomniac. Now, no one's asking them to give us the information about the doxing and stuff like that, right? But at least report on the actual things Venom is a game and Spider-Man 3 is in 3 parts. And I don't know why they took a stance with Insomniac or Sony, I guess, with that stance, but just be a news. Report the news, right? Report the news and be non-biased about it and just tell us what it is. Because if you don't do it, then other people are going to do it. But it's different coming from you or me, even though we're not journalists, right? And we're actual people that are journalists from outlets that are considered journalists, and then they're not reporting on it because whatever they are connected to, because they don't want to be shunned by the industry.
I actually had a different take. I didn't feel like... I will say this. A lot of the outlets are beholden to publishers and developers and won't cross them, okay?
Sure.
I think we've seen this with Bungie. I think Bungie has a lot of these guys completely on a leash, and they're basically mouthpieces for Bungie, and Bungie can do no wrong. Even when Bungie screws up, they're still somehow the hero, according to some of these guys, because they don't want to lose that press access, okay?
Of course.
And I've been on the other side of that. I have been. They definitely control what people say and keep people on a leash. And if you don't, then they blacklist you.
Absolutely. And I've said that to you years ago because I come from Hollywood, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I know it happened.
And then Bungie's not the only one. We've heard people from the Call of Duty community talk about this, how if you came out and were critical of a title, you'd get blacklisted and then you wouldn't get to come to capture events, and that's really damaging to your channel and your livelihood, right? And so I do think the press is in a bad situation because being first is incredibly important because they're essentially quasi-content creators. If they're not first, they're going to make less money. And so being first is way more important than being accurate. So in the wake of the Insomniac leaks, there were tons of outlets that falsely reported things, and they didn't publish retractions. They just published updates.
No, why would they do that? They don't have any integrity.
And then people were really critical of Kinda Funny as an example. Greg over there and Kinda Funny were like, we're not going to cover it. And people gave them grief and said, well, you covered all these other leaks. Well, they came out and kind of defended themselves and said, yeah, we covered the Justice League leaks, but we didn't give you all the info and spoil it for you. And we covered the Insomniac leaks the same way. We told you that they had a leak. We told you that this stuff came out, but we didn't give you all the details. Yeah, and so I felt like they were consistent. It's we're going to tell you that it happened, but we're not going to show you everything.
Well, no, they don't have to show you everything. But when Grand Theft Auto leaks happened and they talked about the Grand Theft Auto leaks, they're like, oh, can you they went into depth, not of the video, but they're like, what do you think this means for Grand Theft Auto and Rocksteady? And they went into more depth. When the documents came out for Xbox, right? They went into details for that. When they came out for Capcom, they went into that. But for some reason, they didn't do it for Insomniac. And I think that's just weird. I'm not asking for them to tell us the 100% details word for word, but tell us, oh yeah, Venom leaked out, and what do you think about Venom, right? Like we do, talk about it. They're telling, and that's how they make their income. That's what they do on all the other leaks. So why didn't they do it with this leak?
Well, I haven't fact checked this, but they indicated that the Capcom leaks, they didn't go into the details. I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't know about how they covered the Grand Theft Auto leaks. I don't know how they covered that. And I also think there was something going on. It was sort of a realization that, wait a minute, are we helping the industry by harming developers and studios by taking anything that we find, just throwing it out there for the public to see? Now, the pushback is, well, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. Like a smaller outlet or a YouTuber, somebody else is going to do it. And I kind of agree with there's a difference between a ransomware group that has targeted hospitals and they love to sell people's information because they're scum.
Grand Theft Auto 6 was malicious.
Right. And I don't know what they did with Grand Theft Auto 6 because that trailer got leaked and then basically they were like, well, we're going to push the trailer out early. Like nobody really had a chance to cover that.
No. I'm talking about last year's leak. I'm talking about when the guy hacked them from a Roku and a mobile phone in the hotel room and he went to trial now. Like that was last year. They reported on that.
I don't know how much detail they gave on that, so I'd have to go back and see, like, were they hypocritical? But I also think it's fair to say we're going to have a different standard going forward because this was kind of a moment of what are we doing? Because like the Xbox leaks, it was like, okay, that was a court case and that was a self-inflicted thing. Like some dum-dum, leaked the documents to the FTC and like PlayStation didn't properly redact their documents and we got to see like the cost of their projects.
Sure, but a leak's a leak, right? A leak is a leak, and all I'm asking for is be consistent across the board. If you're going to take a stance on not reporting on leaks, then don't report on any leaks. Or if you're going to talk about leaks, then talk about all leaks.
I think there's a spectrum of how you can cover them, though. I do, because I think there's a difference between like showing a lot of people that showed the Wolverine footage have gotten takedowns and good. Like that's not your property. You had no right to publicize that. Like, and I think companies have a right to protect their property. And, the people that publicize that stuff and other things got a lot of takedowns. And a lot of them probably had their channels harmed by that. And good, they should, because that taking someone's intellectual stolen property and putting it out into the public is harmful, and there should be consequences for that. I don't think that the press and the public has a right to that. I think the public and the press have a right to, like, maybe information would be what I would say, and information isn't the same as intellectual property. So the roadmaps and the budgets and the financials, I don't really have that big of an issue with that. I think what was more frustrating was the gameplay footage being circulated and chopped up and broken down and discussed. I think that's more of like, we shouldn't be having open season on these developers when someone steals
I agree with
stuff.
That. But at the same time, I'm just saying, like, report or don't report, but be consistent. That's all.
Well, and if they're consistent going forward, then I'm fine with that. Like, I think if companies are going to say, look, we're going to approach this differently. Even I said, I think I'm going to approach leaks differently. I'll be more generic. I'll be like, yeah, the stuff came out and here's been the general reaction. Here's what I think, instead of being like, well, the stuff came out and here's everything we know now. Like, I think there's a way to approach it that's a little bit more, maybe just empathetic and thinking of the people attached to it, but still doing the due diligence to be accurate and honest with people. Like, I can't tell people right now, like, what Venom game? What are you talking about? Like, I can't
right.
Like, posture like I don't know.
I've covered leaks all the time. I've always covered leaks, right? But I'm very generic with the leaks. I'm not going into detail of the stuff. We just talk about it like, hey, did you see that Venom trailer? Or did you see the Venom game? Yeah, what do you think about that? Man, I think it'd be a good game if they did it this way. And just talk about it. Like, you're just speculating. That's what it is. There's no difference between a video game that's out and then there's leaks about what's coming into the game, and then leaks that a game's not out and people are just talking about it and getting excited for it, right? It's like a fandom. We do it for movies. We do it for TV shows. We've done it for everything before. What changed?
Well, yeah, I think it's because people were claiming it was because, they want to protect PlayStation. It's like, you clearly were not paying attention. There was tons of stuff leaked this year about PlayStation that gave us all kinds of insight into stuff, and nobody seemed to care. And especially like during the FTC trial. So it's like, I don't think people were like suddenly like, oh, we've got to protect PlayStation. I think it's because people really like Insomniac. Like, they're beloved.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you have and also, let's be fair here, PlayStation has more fans than other consoles, right? They're like 3-1 in the PlayStation 5. They're 4-1 with the PlayStation 4. There's like 122 million people that own a PlayStation 4. There's a 50 million now that own a PlayStation 5. Combined total, Xbox doesn't even hit the 50 mil on the one side. So there's more PlayStation fans out there than there is Microsoft fans. So I think the bias already is that, well, if nobody talks about PlayStation, well, yeah, there's more people that don't want to talk about it than there is that want to talk about it. So that's why it's like protected. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really protected. It's just that when you have a gate of people in front of you, they can stop what's coming out or not coming out because there's more of them to do that, right? That's all.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of Insomniac and all the leaks and stuff, What do you think they're doing this year? Do you think that cadence that we saw on the one roadmap, where it was, Spider-Man 2, and then a year later a Spider-Man Online component, and then Wolverine, and then a year later an online component. Do you think that's still coming? Because we know the Spider-Man MMO was basically canceled, but online components in game aren't necessarily an MMO. I'm thinking like co-op, right?
Yeah, it could be co-op, yeah.
What do you think Insomniac's doing this year?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume they're working on the next Spider-Man. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. They're working on Wolverine. Wolverine's the next big one out. So I don't know if they're taking a smaller team and working on that online component, maybe just DLC, I would assume, for Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be the safest bet, right? And then Wolverine supposedly comes out next year, according to that leak, right? So I don't really think I think they're just sticking to their guns. I mean, they're going to give more content like they did for Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man 2018. They gave 3 or 4 DLCs for that.
Mm-hmm.
They did Miles Morales. Was there DLC for Miles Morales? I don't think there was. Was there? No.
Mm-mm.
No,
I don't think so.
Yeah, and now Spider-Man 2. So I think they're going to do DLC for that, and then Wolverine. So I think that's the repertoire that they have going. So.
Yeah, I could see some DLC coming this year for Spider-Man, and one of those comes with the online component because, playing one person playing as Miles and one person playing as Pete, or Silk was hinted at the end of Spider-Man. Maybe it's Miles and Silk, and one person can play as Silk and one person can play as Miles, and then they set her up for like her own spin-off game or something, or her own DLC. I don't know, but I actually think the online component is potentially coming. Because even some of the Wolverine gameplay footage, it seemed to, without going too much into detail, it did seem like co-op would be a potential thing. And so I could see them saying, hey, we're going to start to do this, and then according to what we saw, it looks like Spider-Man 3 will launch with the online component on the launch date, which would then make it day and date on PlayStation and PC.
Which I said would happen.
Now,
No.
I said I didn't think that was going to happen until around 2030. I was like, I don't think they're going to do that this generation. But it seems like they're setting themselves up for the transition with if they slowly add online components. And I wouldn't be surprised if when the online component lands with the game, it also gets its PC port. But then Spider-Man 3 will be the exception. It'll be like, no, 2029, this thing's launching on PlayStation 6, PlayStation 5 Pro, PlayStation 5, and PC, and everybody can play together.
Yeah, I think their strategy kind of backfired. I think Sony thinks that because they're putting it on their console first, more people are going to buy it there, and then they'll buy it the road. But PC guys are going to buy it at the same time. If it came out the same day, they would buy it, and then you would have more sales. You would have the PlayStation, and then you would have the PC, and then I think you would get more sales because if you wait a year or year and a half, there's another game coming out that PC players are going to be like, no, I'm going to play this instead. Like, that's the game I already know about, and right. But if you put it out the exact same time, in my, idea would be that it would sell more copies because they would sell the 5 million on PlayStation or 6 million, and they would sell the additional 2 or 3 million on PC at the exact same time, and then they'd be successful. Instead, they're like, no, we want people to go buy our PlayStation because they have to play it on PlayStation. I'm like, that's an outdated system. In my opinion, like cool. Like, you make great games on PlayStation, but release those because those PC players, the diehard PCs they don't own consoles, so they're just gonna wait for it to come out on PC. It doesn't matter if it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'll play it when I play it now. It's no big deal.
Well, and I wonder if the change in strategy also, just from PlayStation's perspective, if their market dominance this gen continues, and it likely will. Like, it's looking like the nail's kind of slowly sliding into the coffin. I wonder if they would say, we no longer have to worry about the next gen console selling well. Like, the PlayStation 6 will naturally hit a great market saturation because so many of our existing customers are just going to upgrade. And there's going to be a peak of there's only so many consumers you can generally have anyway. So launching day and date on PC in 2029 or 2030 is no longer a threat to their hardware distribution like it might have been this gen. Like, if PS5, if day one you'd have been like, oh, you can play Ratchet and Clank. Oh, also you can get on a PC. well, then why would I buy a PS5? Like it would, they had such a small market share at that point of PS5s, like 7 to 10 million. Well, now they're 50 million, and they're on a pace to just absolutely continue.
Right.
I wonder if their strategy is like the PS6 will sell automatically. It won't. We're not going to threaten that thing's market saturation. Do you think that's possibly playing a role in their pivoting strategy and saying, yeah, next the PlayStation 6, yeah, you can do day and date PC, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they do it at that point when the PlayStation 6 comes out? And plus, the people that have a PlayStation 5, you're already in the ecosystem, because I would assume the PlayStation 6, if they were smart, would be backwards compatible for everything that you already own on the PlayStation 5. You know what I mean? So you already have the sunk cost fallacy inside of that system. So why would you switch systems or go somewhere else? You would just buy the PlayStation 6 and continue your what you love and go into the next one, because that's what they want you to do. So that's already baked in. I think that they need to step up and be like, hey, now you want to get out to the PC market and we do it day and date. No one's saying day and date for the PlayStation Plus, but release it for PC and PC and PlayStation at the exact same time.
Now Eugene is saying an extra couple million sales isn't worth a couple million people leaving the platform. Yeah, again, I think maybe they just get to a certain size where that's just not a concern anymore. And it's one game. Like, I don't think this means every game is day and date on PC. I think what they're going to do is they're going to set the expectation that if the game has an online component, then it's going to land day and date on PC. If it doesn't have an online component, you will probably likely still have games that stagger their release and don't land on PC. Because I don't think that PlayStation's going to be able to ask every single one of their studios to start doing parallel development. A lot of their studios love building their games just for the PS5 because it makes it faster, it makes it more polished, it makes it easier to optimize. And so I don't necessarily think we're going to turn around in 2029, 2030 and it's like, well, yeah, there's no longer PlayStation 5 titles that come to PC. I'm sorry, PlayStation 6 titles at that point that come to PC later. So yeah, I don't think that's a reality that's going to suddenly just turn on us and we're like, yeah, there's no longer games that you have to wait for on PC. And I also don't think you would have a groundswell of people leave, because I think buying a PlayStation 5 or a PlayStation 6 at that point is just so much more convenient than dealing with the PC. Like, the PC realm is just, there's a stigma there. They're more expensive, because people are like, well, you can build a PC for really a lot cheap. The average consumer is going to go to Best Buy, or they're going to go to like a website or an Amazon, and they're going to say, it's $1,500 for a gaming PC. Yeah.
And with that, you could literally buy an Xbox or a PlayStation and buy like 5 games a year for like 5 years for the price of what you get one computer with nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could literally get the whole life cycle of a console for the same price as a PC.
And I think people forget that the average consumer has no idea that you can, even if they know that you can bargain shop and use Newegg and PC Part Picker, like, they're just not going to do that. Like, they're not going to take the time to be like, well, I got to figure out how to build a rig. They're going to go to sites that have pre-builds.
Yeah,
and the pre-builds are always going to be way more expensive than you building your own. It's why the PC Master Race guys always scoff at the idea of buying pre-built. And it's like, that's exactly why consoles will always be in demand. Like, there's just not a reason for people to go that route. Consumers love the path of least resistance. And the tech's going to keep advancing, and you're going to be able to buy really powerful consoles in 2030. And I think that's a great segue to let's kind of land a plane here. What do you think Nintendo's going to do next year? You think the Switch 2's coming? They're going to drop this thing, and it's going to be more powerful and surprise us all?
I do think they're going to drop something. I don't know if it's going to be. I said it would be to the standard of what this generation is now. I don't think they're going to surpass what PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are doing. I think they're going to just butt up against it. Maybe be just a little bit less because Nintendo has that baked in, fan base. No matter what they do, they release a console, they release Zelda, Metroid, Mario, and they're good to go for the next, 5 years. I do think they drop something. I don't know what that's going to be, but I do believe they bring it up significantly with graphics and like fidelity and whatnot to compete, but not compete. You know what I mean? Just to bring it up too, because they know that the boys are going to the next level after this, and Nintendo's just like, let's just bring it up to here, right? Like, here's the bar. They're just like, right there, butt it up against it, and they're like, we're Nintendo, and that's all we need to be. I do believe they drop it this year.
Yeah, that sales chart that was circulating about like just one of their first party titles outsells.
Oh yeah,
entire generation. It's just insane.
30 to 50 million copies sold for their first party titles. Yeah,
crazy. And I remember people saying, Nintendo is for kids, or they don't take Nintendo seriously. And I'm like, that's just such weird energy. I feel like those are people that are late to gaming. Like, they don't know.
Sure.
They don't know of whom they speak. It's like you're talking about Nintendo, right? I feel like anybody who has that attitude about Nintendo, it's like your first video game was on like an Xbox 360 or something. Like, you were not around when Nintendo basically changed the world and
saved the industry.
Yeah.
They literally saved the industry.
Yeah, you were not around for that. And I think a lot of the times that's always the difference between, because I got every system, and I just think that's why I can always look at Nintendo. I said this the other day because someone's like, you don't like Sonic? I was like, I didn't grow up with Sonic, so I don't really care. Like, when Sonic comes out, I'm like, ooh, cool, a Sonic game, and that's kind of the end of it. But when a Mario game comes out, I'm like, oh, I got to play that. You
grew up with Sonic. You just didn't own a Sega Genesis.
Well, that means I didn't grow up with Sonic.
But no, he was there. You just didn't, right? You just didn't own the because no one owned the Sega Genesis back then. It was like
my cousins did, and we went over and played it, and I was like, I thought it was lame. I was like, this is not as good as Nintendo.
I had all the systems. So, but basically, the Sega Genesis was the Xbox of that generation. You know what I mean? Like, it was the less popular. Like, you couldn't get Nintendo, so they gave you a Genesis instead.
Yeah, I went to my cousin's house and played Sonic, and I thought, I remember this distinctly. I thought, this is lame. Like, Mario's way better. Like, it was, even at that age, there was that idea of, this isn't, I don't like this as much. Like, I wasn't console warring at my cousin's house, but I was like, dude, I like Nintendo. Like, I'm a Nintendo guy, back then. And I didn't really lean away from Nintendo until I wanted to play better shooters, because I remember loving GoldenEye, and then I loved Time Splitters. And the place to go for better shooters was PC, with Quake and Call of Duty and Unreal Tournament. And so I think that this next year, I don't have any crazy predictions, but I think a couple of surprises are going to be Nintendo's going to shock all of us. And then I think we're going to have titles that break out and say, and that people were dismissive of. Like, I think that Kill the Justice League is going to surprise folks. I think Foam Stars is going to shock people. The one that looks like Splatoon, I'm like, nah, you guys are writing this game off. And I'm telling you,
I'm one of the ones writing it off. I'm writing it off.
Sleeper hit. Trust me on this one. I'm telling you, that one's a sleeper hit. People hate on me for this prediction, but I think Foam Stars is a sleeper hit.
I won't hate on you. I just look at that and go, yeah, no. Done.
So
Skull and Bones is done. I'll tell you that. I don't know. Did you play Skull and Bones at all?
I have not. No, I had to make sure. I have not touched or played Skull and Bones.
Yeah, it was out. Yeah.
Well, I did the thing with Avatar, so I have to remember like what I've played. I don't want to speak out of turn. No, I have not played Skull and Bones, and I think that game's going to crash and burn.
that is going to crash and burn. Yes. Sorry, what were we going to say?
Well, those are some of my predictions. Do you have any wild predictions?
Like what? Like, that's gonna.
I don't know. Is there anything you think's gonna happen? Any surprises? Anything like that?
No, I don't think anything. I think this is going to be a slow. I know people are going to take this out of context. This is going to be a slower gaming year than it was last year. Last year was just full of just bangers left and right with a bunch of games coming out, and I think that was the leftover of the 2 years that we were stuck in our homes. And I think they're all releasing at the exact same time, like the beginning of this year. That's why so many games are coming out in February, and that's the tail end of it. And then it's going to slow down a bit, and then maybe 2025 will kick back into more. And when I say this, AAA games, obviously there's going to be lots and lots of games coming out. Like Dogma 2 is a big. It's a big game, but it's not a popular game like in the bigger fan base. You know what I mean? It's a big game within the niche market of Dragon Dogma.
Yeah. I think there are definitely some big titles that we didn't mention that I think people are really excited about. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is one of those.
Protocol.
What's that?
Blue Protocol. That's supposed to come out this year, isn't it? Or 2024? That's the MMO.
I have completely stopped hearing about Blue Protocol, and that could be self-imposed. I stopped paying attention to it because I'm obviously I've got my concerns about where that game goes with monetization.
I'm not a fan of it, but I know that it was big amongst the group. So
yeah. So I don't know if that one's still on pace to arrive. There's that weird lane that we're seeing of sort of like action adventure style MMOs that we're seeing glimpses of with that one. And then what was the other one? Wayfinder.
Not sure Light No Fire
coming
out this year? People are saying it's coming out this year, but maybe that's a big drop that happens that we don't know about. No Man's Sky, like the sequel.
I actually think that Light No Fire is going to be unlocked in a No Man's Sky expedition, and I think.
Oh, you think it's going to be part of it?
I think it's going to be part of the universe. Yeah, I think we're gonna unlock it. Now, I don't think you're gonna play Light No Fire inside of No Man's Sky.
Yeah, I got you. You're doing a thing to unlock it, and then you play it. Right?
Yeah, I think they're gonna do like an ARG or like when Destiny did that stuff where the public is involved and it unlocks something.
How would they charge for that though? If they want to make money? I mean, you play a mission, you unlock it, then is it like what Destiny does with the jackets for the raids? Like you played the thing, you completed it, now you get to pay us for the game? Like what happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll tell you, hey, if you want to come to this planet, you got to come by it, and because you were a part of this event, because you did this expedition, we're gonna give you some stuff. I think they might do something like that. I think Sean Murray has a gorilla-sized ace up his sleeve. I think this game is going to absolutely shock the world. I do.
I hope it does.
Yeah, I think it stole the show at the Game Awards, and that trailer has absolutely exploded. I think people are very, very excited and intrigued by this game, and if somebody can bring it, it's Hello Games.
I'm intrigued by what you just said because it's almost like pre-ordering a game for like the cosmetic thing. Like if you pre-order, you get this ship or you get this cosmetic item, and what you just said was that if you play No Man's Sky and you do this mission, that you would get these things, right? Mm-hmm. And into this game. So you're like, play our old game that's linked to, because I do think it's linked to the universe. We talked about this 2 weeks ago with the logo and stuff, that you would play to a certain point and then go, oh, I've unlocked the pre-order bonus by playing this game, and now I can unlock it. That'd be interesting if they did something like that. That'd be very interesting.
Right. And I think that, Hello Games has deservedly climbed the mountain of consumer trust and confidence. I think they were all the way down in a valley, and 7 years, and I think they're at the peak. I think they have a lot.
They've won their goodwill back. Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
they're the outlier, though. I don't think a lot of companies can do what they've done in the last 7 years.
Yeah, I think CD Projekt Red did. Maybe not to the same degree, but I think CD Projekt Red climbed back up on the horse, and people are like, okay, Phantom Liberty was amazing. Phantom Liberty won an award, and that'll give a lot of confidence for Witcher in the future stuff from them. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I think Hello Games is it's almost like we don't deserve them because they got the crap kicked out of them, and they stayed true and just kept pushing. And I actually think they're evidence of another thing that's going to happen over the course of the next 10 years. I think you're going to see a lot of big studios close, and that's going to be because of Embracer Group and Microsoft and Tencent and a lot of these guys that have gobbled up so many studios. It's just unsustainable. I think you're going to see a lot of big studio foreclosure, and you're going to see a lot of small studios like explode on the scene. I think that's the equilibrium of the industry headed our way because the big budgets and the big studios, it just isn't sustainable. And
no.
But the result is, everybody's doomsday about that. It's like the result is we get a bunch of studios the size of Hello Games that can take risks and that can be innovative because their budget's smaller and their team's smaller and they're more agile. And
right.
I think that is a significant aspect of the gaming future. And
it's just coming back around because back in the day, Activision, EA, they weren't these conglomerate companies. They're conglomerate now because of what they what they did in the past, right? They made these little games, and then they built up their empire because of us, the gamers. And now they're at the top where they're spending $400 million, $500 million with marketing and the game itself, and it's unsustainable because if a game like Spider-Man 2 costs $3 million, they have to sell 6 million copies to basically break even with the game and then the marketing, right? Where that's why the rumors of Spider-Man 2 or 3 being broken up into 3 parts is because if it cost them $500 million, but then they charge $70 for each of those things, they're making 3 times the money off of one game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because part 2 and part 3 are not going to cost $300 million. They're going to cost like $115 million or something like that, right?
That's right.
So they got to bring the cost down, and the only way that could happen is what they're basically rumored to be doing, or you go the route that you just said with smaller companies with 25 people to maybe 50 people making a game with a budget less than 100 mil, and then they sell 2 million copies, 3 million copies, and then that's a good that's the new wave, right? That's the new. Those are the companies now are jockeying for position, the lower small end companies into position to be the next Activision, to be the next EA, to be the next Blizzard or whatever.
Yeah. I forgot about Hyper Light Breaker too. Hyper Light Drifter was such a good game.
Which one was that?
Hyper Light Drifter had a really unique art style. It's kind of a top down, and the thing that I actually had to go and look up a guide on how to do this is they have this dash, but the dash has a timing mechanic. So if you don't learn the timing and the rhythm of it, then it doesn't make sense and you die a bunch. And so I remember I had to literally look up a guide on how to do it, and then I fell in love with the game. And their new game is going to be like third person, again, like challenging combat and iframes and stuff. It looks really, really cool. Right. Very cool art style.
Real quick, I just want to say something from chat. It just popped in my head. I totally forgot about Epic, right? Epic Games is going to change small studio game, right? What you said, because there's companies just making games within games.
Yep.
Games within the games. That's like a completely different meta that we've never experienced before. I mean, obviously, Roblox and Minecraft have been around, but what the Unreal Engine's doing, what Epic is doing with that, and bringing people in, like what they just did with Lego Fortnite and the rhythm game, and then what you can do within those games themselves, it's crazy.
Well, and I honestly think that the indie scene is going to just continue. I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think smaller studios are about to really have their time in the sun because the bigger projects and the bigger studios, they got to space their projects out. I also think the bigger project and the bigger studios it's easier for them to crash and burn. It's easier for them to not hit expectations because, Starfield's score plummeted over the holiday, and everyone's like, why is this happening? And I'm like, it's not hard to figure out. Like, it was one of the most anticipated games from a developer that's considered sacred, and it's a pretty mediocre bad game. Like, there's no conspiracy here. Like, and I said the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So the results of that, I think, is going to be smaller projects, smaller studios are really going to have their time to shine, which I think is great for gamers. I think that means we just get more stuff to do and more stuff to play. Yeah. So, well, we typically go to like a VIP segment, but Writers Room, like Writers members and up are basically like a very similar core group of members, and we've got some things to talk about with you guys. So today is going to be a really unique experience where members who are at a writer's status and up get to come with us. Now, most of the membership is actually gifted, so if you're one of the lucky people who's gifted in our member pool here on the channel, don't forget that tonight you can come hang out with my wife and I. We'll be chilling, we'll be playing. We got a cool Jackbox game where like 100 people can play, so make sure you're here tonight. That's for all members. Mike, before we head to this stream and kind of chop it up and keep talking, tell everybody where they can find you and what kind of content they can get from you.
You can find me over on 30NSG. I stream Monday through Thursday from 10 o'clock in the morning to around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We cover news stories and just banter back and forth with chat. Chat is 100% interactive with my channel. Then we also do Monday through Wednesday gaming streams at night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we end up the week, finish the week off on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern with Generation X Gaming. And we get our first episode, season 10 of Generation X Gaming next week. So,
guys, be sure to check him out. Okay, his name is clickable in the description. He'll say something in chat. You can click on his name. Sometimes you can click on the name, sometimes you can't. Like certain apps and browsers don't let you. But if you can't click on his name is clickable in the description. And I'm going to provide a link as well. And listen, if you got a gifted membership, and you want more content and you want to see more stuff, we've got some really cool things coming in the new year, and you're going to need to be at that Reforge Writer tier or higher. And so those standard $5 tier memberships, which are mostly gifteds, you're going to have to pick up your own membership on your own and pay that. It's $6, and you'll get into way more content. And if you want to know what's coming, you might want to upgrade today and head on over to the stream we're about to head to. So I'm going to put a link in chat, and then I'm going to start it up, and then we'll end and redirect. Thanks so much for being a Reforge Writer or higher. Special edition here. Usually this is a VIP-only stream, but we've got some announcements and some things to talk about with you about what we're going to be doing in the new year with the members-only content. And I had an amazing insight and epiphany yesterday when I looked on the back end of the channel, and it's really going to help us make, I think, a very good decision. So I'm going to end the previous stream. If you're watching the very tail end of the show with my friend here, 30 and Still Gaming, make sure you guys smash that like button. We need 10 more likes, so as the show comes to an end, hit that like button, and we'll see you next time, or maybe we'll see you tonight for the members-only Friday night stream with my wife. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that thumbnail also gets updated